Welcome to the OIC, otherwise known as the Omnipresent Information Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Peterson.
And I'm the co-host, Noah Hansen. The Omnipresent Information Connection podcast is all about your world and your unique walk on this path called life. We present fascinating, life-changing information from around the world that has been validated. We also authenticate the information by providing you with links to where you can find out more about what we are talking about on our show. This podcast includes historically accurate, genuine facts that have helped shape our daily lives into what they are today. This is going to be a great episode where we're going to talk about the process of overcoming, give you some strategies to overcome, and help you have a little bit of a shift in perspective if you need it when we're facing chaotic times in the world. When we face chaotic times in the world, we do not need to become a aspect or a piece of that chaos ourselves. We can actually be our own eye of the storm. We can be the oasis in the desert that's not a mirage, mind you, and we can be that sort of peace, positivity, beam of shining light in the darkness of chaos when we are facing scary times in this world, because, you know, at all times in our history, we've gone through scary things, whether it's earthquakes and tsunamis and other natural disasters, to things as relevant today as virus outbreaks or, you know, just political changes and shift in our economy. So, Kevin, I'm really excited about this episode. I think it'll be wonderfully beneficial to anyone who's getting lost in the fear of these times and these days. I want you to be able to shine your light as much as possible in this episode to show people that we really have nothing to fear as long as we can learn to overcome. So teach us the first thing about overcoming.
Thank you, Noah, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. There's 5 simple steps or processes of overcoming life challenges. And I don't know about you listeners, but when overcoming any challenge, you have to be able to intimately understand what you're being challenged with. Mm-hmm. Whether it's news, media, whether it's radio, whether it's television, you know, whether it's a close friend or relative, or a personal connection with a lover or spouse, right?
May I add a popular phrase in here?
Mm-hmm.
Keep your enemies closer, your friends close, and your enemies closer.
Absolutely. And there's a reason for that. And it's kind of simple. Is that if you know what your enemy is up to, then you already have a self-defense system to overcome it.
That's right.
But I wanted to get into the 5 simple step process for overcoming life challenges. Life challenges of any size can cause us to be reactive and clutter our minds with disempowering thoughts, like what you said earlier. Sometimes we feel like we can't even think at all, even though these are some of the most important times to see things clearly and respond wisely. The following steps are one created for many of my clients and myself to focus on when we face life challenges. They have worked well for us, and I hope they will provide value for you too.
For sure. We love to share the things that we've tested out ourselves, and we won't share information that we don't believe is going to really benefit you in some way, shape, or form on this podcast. Just wanted to cut that in there. I think it's important. People should know that, you know, we do try out the things that we are recommending for you to try.
And you have to understand is that if you haven't tried it, you haven't lived it. And so all the advice, suggestions, and life principles that we give you at the OIC come from actual real-life experiences. The been there, did that, done that experience, so that we can be able to provide you with the most authenticated information possible.
That's right.
Now, let's get back to it. Discover the truth. This is one of the biggest ones that has really rocketed my life into a whole new atmosphere, is being able to discover the truth in a way that not only comforts me, but makes sense to many people when it's being said back as a response. And your perspectives, reactions, and beliefs can cloud your ability to see the truth. Before moving forward, it is important to know what is real right now. the key right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Being present.
Challenge your thoughts by asking yourself whether you can know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they are true. If you need more information, do the forensics and get the facts. Be your own private investigator. That's what led me to being a private investigator in my life, is that hearing bits and pieces and parts of information. You're going to hear bits and pieces and parts of information in the radio, on TV, and then person to person, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's more important is to actually get it from the source. Get the information that you need to know from the source so that it is only transmitted, the information, from point A to point B, not from point A to point C, right?
Right. And I think that, with many people getting most of their information about the world from the mainstream media, I think that filter, whether, whatever you think about the mainstream media, that filter isn't always the best filter that we can possibly get it from. For example, they don't give all the information that will affect people positively and cause people to know the latest in science, the latest and greatest in different fields such as quantum physics, because I don't see a thing about quantum physics in the news. I don't see a thing about anthropological discoveries that we enjoy telling you about on the news. But I think that medium is sometimes a little bit of a negative medium here. So the first step was to know your challenges, know what you're facing.
Yeah, discover your truth.
The second one is basically not to focus on the what was or the what ifs, and focus on the what is.
What is.
Investigator.
That's right. And then ask yourself what you know for sure. Is what I'm hearing authentic, speculation, accusation, or real life scenario, right?
That's right, because if it's real, it's going to be with you in the present moment. If it's just an imagination, it's going to be, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? And if it was in the past and it's something you can move past, but you're still maybe be facing a negative viewpoint on that past situation, it's but I was this, I was that, or that's what was.
Absolutely.
We don't need to focus on those. We need to focus on the reality, especially when the world is going through chaotic times.
Brilliantly said. Thank you, Noah. And then you may want to write down these indisputable things as a reference point to keep your focus where it will serve you best. Often at times when I listen to something and it catches my attention, I'll write it down as just a future note to be able to research or look into something. It's important to be able to write things down because as you're writing it down, you have a sixth sense. Everyone has it. No one can escape it. Everyone has a sixth sense. They actually have a kind of intuitive known knowledge somehow, some way, that what they're about ready to write or what they're writing is authentic or it has question marks in it, right? From there, it's like Swiss cheese. It's got all these different holes in it, right? That you have to be able to patch up to be able to make it a whole slice of cheese, right? And
right.
For those in Wisconsin, Wisconsin cheese, rocks. But more importantly is that it helps you to be able to go to the next level, which is move into acceptance. And for many people, acceptance is very, very difficult, very hard. Because did they themselves go into acceptance or put themselves into acceptance, or did society put them into acceptance, right?
Right, you're talking about a negative acceptance, a sort of, I'm trapped in this situation, this is what has to be in my life.
And again, it could be trapped in a positive or a negative, right?
Right.
All right. So acceptance of the truth brings peace. This can be a tough one if you don't want to face something or feel like accepting means you're making what someone did okay. But the truth is the truth. The facts are the facts. When you accept, you no longer spend unnecessary energy resisting what is really happening or who the person really is. So, in simplicity, is that acceptance comes with physical, mental, emotional stress. And how do you categorize them, how do you mentally, physically, spiritually put them in place to where you feel in control? Because acceptance is a form of control, right?
Acceptance is I would say acceptance is a form of easing your, controlling factors in your life, as well as a source of control. Yeah, self-control.
It's like a radio dial. You can be able to channel in on any of these different channels, on any of these different frequencies. But if nothing resonates with you, it all sounds the same, right?
Yeah, what you're accepting is it's based on your perception, your current worldview. Sure,
absolutely.
Large in part.
So it is from a place of clarity that you find acceptance. And the only way to be able to get that clarity is to be able to know how to accept what is authentically true versus pandemically a fear factor. What is literally not supposed to fear you fears you because you haven't studied it, you haven't researched it, and so therefore you feel out of control. You don't need to feel out of control on anything. It's a choice or an option, but it takes the same amount of emotional intelligence to be able to feel out of control that it is to be able to put yourself in control and stay in control. It's the same amount of energy. It just comes down to choice, right?
Yeah, it's honestly a lot of times it's up to, am I going to act or am I just going to sit around and let the same old be the same old?
Mm-hmm. And a way to be able to decipher this emotional, physical, and spiritual code is to review your options. That's the next step, right?
Okay, that's step 4.
Mm-hmm. 3 out of 5, but
it's step 3.
Yeah, but when you are no longer in a reactive state of mind, list all the choices available to you as your next step. Weed them out one at a time until you come to one of these feels good feelings that you have towards one, and then use both your brain and your inner guidance system to help you decide.
Where did we mention that inner guidance system being in the last episode?
In the mind.
In the heart, though, remember?
Mm-hmm. But the mind has to be able to tell the heart how to mind.
Oh, I see. Yeah, the mind is the guide, is the conscious guide.
Whereas
the heart is the one that's picking up everything around you. What we mentioned in the last podcast, 2 to 14 seconds before it even occurs.
Mm-hmm. And that's powerful. And that's great insight, Noah. So, review your options. So, when you're no longer in a reactive state of mind, list all these choices available to you as your next step. Weed them out, and then use both your brain and your inner guidance system to help you decide. Then the next step is to move forward. Never move back, right? Because we, as children, have been pushed, pulled, and dragged all over the place. We have been constantly reaching out our hand and having someone put us in a direction one way or another. It's only until we become more comfortable in our own skin do we no longer need to reach for the mother's hand, but to be able to tell the mother that we have got the direction in mind and we just go on our set path, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
So by moving forward, your next step may be about taking care of your immediate needs or taking time to heal. Once you have decided what the right thing for you to do is, move toward it. Don't let yourself delay and spend extended time marinating in thoughts or emotions that will keep you stuck or make you feel worse. Take action that will lead to your better future. And your better future is information. Information is power. But you've got to be able to know how to get to the source to be able to then become resourceful in being able to not only accept the information, not only to be able to review your options of that information, not only to be able to then take the needed steps in moving in acceptance, but then as you have discovered the truth, then you can finally be able to have that freedom to be able to do something with it. But you've got to be able to do one powerful thing in the climax and the conclusion of this whole entire thing.
What's that?
You've got to love yourself enough to want to do it in the first place.
Ooh, good one. Self-acceptance.
Self-acceptance, right? Because we as human beings have always been trained that we are disempowered. Taught that we can't do anything without someone else's authority. Believed that we can never be as powerful as the person telling us how disempowering we are, right?
That's right.
Until a climatic event happens to where a 90-year-old woman sees that someone is trapped underneath the vehicle and raises the vehicle up to be able to save the person, not thinking about her age or her limitations, but strictly on her mental can-do attitude and her belief in the truth that she can. That in itself is the self-manifesting gift that God has given us to be able to be our best selves today. We have to be able to get rid of the world and get into God so that we can rejoice in our can-do spirit today.
I hear that. That's an amazing story. I wonder if we can provide or find a link of that story of the old woman lifting the car. Several other miracles have happened that defy human limitations and what we thought was possible before.
Well, the other stories are, a mechanic was working on a vehicle and then got trapped underneath the vehicle. And then through some miraculous manner, he was able to lift the vehicle off of him and scoot himself out from underneath the vehicle to safety.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a instinctive reaction, not a, should I think about it, should I ponder on it, should I wish upon a star about it, or taking direct action as a life-saving measure to manifest the outcome that became positive even though he had injuries. The will to live is far more important than the mental aspects of dying.
Yeah, it can defy physical barriers, physical limitations.
So, for most of us, this may be the hardest to remember during trying times. It may also be the most important. Self-care will allow you to operate at your best throughout all the challenges and reduce your recovery time. You are your greatest resource. Be gentle with yourself and give your body, mind, and soul what they need. You will be glad you did. So, Noah, you've got a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge.
Well, thank you.
Give us an example of how you were able to nurture yourself into not only recovery, but on a mental, physical, and spiritual level to where you became the living truth of that testimony.
It's an interesting question. I am not as knowledgeable as some may think. The amount of knowledge I have is but a blip in this entire universe, as are all of the shared knowledge of humanity.
Your experience is the knowledge that other people seek.
The knowledge that I have is the knowledge that my teacher was given me. The approval, the power of knowing. And that's God.
Amen.
And so an experience of overcoming, an experience of transcending worldly limitations, emulating the message of strength. Is that sort of what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as many may know who listen to this podcast, I was in a major injury in the June month of 2017. That left me with several fractured bones, including an open fracture on my left arm and major pelvis fractures. And I was in the hospital for a good few months there, and got out as soon as I could. And one of the descriptions that the doctors in that hospital gave me was a miracle because of the amount of time it took for me to heal. And before this injury had occurred, I'd been looking into the power of intention, the power of manifestation, the power of being able to stay positive, and the power of a positive mind. And I already was aware that the power of positivity actually can speed up the healing process. In fact, I just learned a few days ago, I was researching mindfulness for one of my recent videos. And they said that mindfulness, one of the first studies that was done on it, I think less than a decade ago, or just over a decade ago, is they did a study where they had people who were suffering from psoriasis, and they had this blue light therapy that they did to help cure it, to help prevent it, and so and to help heal it. So what they had was they had these test subjects. One group tested in mindfulness, trained in mindfulness, and the other group not trained in mindfulness. The group that applied mindfulness to their healing process with these light rays healed actually a third of the time faster than the people who didn't apply mindfulness.
Wow.
So I was applying this in the hospital, right? I was already doing this. I didn't know of this study yet, but I was doing this in the hospital. And I stayed positive throughout my whole recovery, and what ended up happening was I recovered a whole lot quicker than a lot of people wouldn't have been walking by their third month, and I was on my feet. I was walking.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So I had healed phenomenally quicker than a lot of patients would have, and that was pretty amazing. The amount of mental injuries that I've suffered, and that we all suffer in life, though, is another story of overcoming that I think we all have to one point or another. We've all overcome something in our minds at one point or another that I think is very powerful.
Absolutely.
And we should focus on those times to draw in our own sense of inner strength when we think about the past struggles we've been through, how we've already been through a lot worse than probably what we're going through now. It brings things to perspective. It helps us reconnect.
It really does, because we can't live on this earth without facing life challenges. But if we respond in a healthy way, their impact on us can be reduced. It will be a lot easier to recover and focus on the lessons we learned instead of any fear or pain we experienced. Remember, life is a gift, challenges and all, and you have all of the inner and outer resources you need to live it well.
Hallelujah.
And through God is where you get that source to become resourceful.
That's right, the source of all things good.
Mm-hmm.
Truly. So when the world is going through a chaotic time, Kevin, when the world is in mass panic, it seems, how can we just take a step back and look at our lives and maybe give us some perspective on how to transcend that world panic and not get wrapped up in it?
First step that has saved my life is take a deep breath and then let it out.
Mm-hmm. Daily.
You've got to be able to breathe right to think right.
That's right. I agree 100%. Breathwork is an amazing thing that a lot of people don't know of the power of that's in it, just breathing right.
Because an authentic truth is that when you get shocked, your breath automatically goes,
Right.
But when you are in fear, it's as if though you don't have even a breath to take, right?
Right, it takes the air out of your lungs.
But when you are in a contemplative mental mood, you end up, whether you focus on it or not, start to change how you breathe.
That's alpha brainwaves, folks.
Mm-hmm.
That's looking inwards instead of outwards.
Absolutely.
And how powerful that is when the world's in chaos, not looking at the world and being able to focus on your inner world. It's that inner work during those times.
Very powerful information you're sharing. Thank you.
Every time. I'm not going to share anything but.
So
you too.
Understand is that the breath work is what gets the brain to work. By breathing right, you can be able to think right.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to be able to take that pause to be able to then reflect on not only what was said, not only on what was done, but to be able to take that needed pause to be able to think about your can-do spirit, what you can do, what you can't do, and why.
Mm-hmm.
Once you do that, then it becomes game over. You're going to find out in life that if you keep to a very simplistic 3-step method, breathe in, breathe out. Now think. It changes the whole perspective of what's going on because you have to be able to focus on breathing in, breathing out, and then being able to think clearly on what your next move is. It's a lot like chess. And for those people that haven't played chess, it's a lot like dodgeball. If people haven't played dodgeball, at least they've seen it. Is that a lot of us are standing in line waiting for the next greatest thing to be able to pop up in the world. Whether it's the latest and greatest cell phone, whether it's latest and greatest this or that, right?
Yeah.
But nobody wants to be the target. Nobody wants the ball thrown at them for them to have to either deflect or to be able to move out of the way. So a lot of people try to avoid that obstacle. But when you allow yourself to be able to breathe and to be able to experience the environment around you, you can start to almost get a sixth sense when that ball is about ready to be thrown at you. And your, without thinking about it, body goes into a deflective mode to where you can be able to turn or bend or flex in a way to where you don't get hit by that dodgeball, right?
Right.
You can start to be able to see what the dodgeball actually is in reality. And a lot of times, without even thinking about it, you can actually catch that dodgeball and throw it right back because you don't believe that you deserve to get hit more than you do wanting to embrace or to be able to catch what you are empowered by.
And for chess, it'd be discerning the opponent's next moves and being defensive enough to have a defense on the chessboard.
Absolutely. And then for those ladies out there that love to dance, your partner has to be able to help you to be able to take that next step so that everything becomes a beautiful dance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some things can be done on a solo, but the most beautiful things are done where two or more are gathered in that situation. And the conclusion is where two or more gathered in Jesus' name, so is the solution.
I think that's a great conclusion. We can actually conclude this whole episode with that. For those of you who would like to know more about what we were talking about, changing from a sort of looking at the world and starting to take a breath and look inwards when you're facing chaos in the world, I highly recommend that you go to our YouTube channel at www.inanewway.com and check out the Brainwaves episode, the Brainwaves video on YouTube there. And along with several others, Choosing Your Pathways is a good one as well on our YouTube channel to be able to see more strategies for dealing with chaos in the world. We also have the Authenticity podcast, which if you haven't listened to yet, is a great podcast with me and Kevin to learn more about what we talked about today. We look forward to meeting you on our next show, and don't forget that we have a Patreon where if you are inspired to become a contributor to our mission and vision, we will welcome you with open arms and will guarantee you some benefits there. Thanks for listening.
This has been another life-enhancing, authenticated podcast aired by the OIC and brought to you by the faithful OIC sponsors and contributors. Please tune in every week and subscribe to our podcast. And while you're there, explore our website with all the posts, videos, and podcasts that we have created with you in mind. While you're on the journey through our website, you will see our Patreon page where you can become a faithful contributor yourself with the freedom to be a part of our team today. Thank you.